We spoke to the creator of the brand new Willow series on Disney Plus, Jonathan Kasdan. Check it out. Let me begin with a deep cut. I am a huge Willow fan and I have props, but were these
Shadow Moon,
novels
you have the Shadow Moon series.
original first editions,
You're
my
a
friend?
big Shadow Wars fan.
Were
Yes.
were those novels an inspiration at all, or did you guys start from scratch when you were plotting the sequel?
Well, I will tell you this. I'll give you the straight dope, which is that I like you went and absorbed those novels and was felt that they were critical texts. And then I went into Lucasfilm when we were beginning the discussion of this project, and it was explained to me by covert members of the Lucasfilm family that indeed what had actually transpired in the mid 90s is that Chris Claremont had written those books on spec, and had written them as fantasy novels of his own, and was in search of a publishing partner. Someone within George's company found them. Someone had the brilliant idea that very minimal revisions would be needed to turn them into an extension of the Willow series. There was a brief conversation. Those meetings, those changes were made. George's name was added to the front cover to increase sales, and that the sort of mythology of George and Chris sitting down and writing those books is sadly exactly that, a myth. And so when this was
You have
told to me,
shattered my worldview, my friend.
yes, yes. So when this was told to me, as it was shattering to me, I sort of I grieved for a good couple of weeks, and then I sort of started fresh with the show as it is.
Well, the show, they gave us the first three episodes, and it's
Yes.
fantastic. Like, I'm
Oh, I'm so
already
glad you like
deep
it.
into it. Willow was one of those cinematic oddities that kind of found its fandom well after its cinematic run. And I was wondering if you had a theory as to why the movie wasn't as well received as it should have been.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. It was a rough time for fantasy films, and it's funny in this day and age, and sort of in a post Lord of the Rings world, to imagine that there were, a fair share of fantasy movies being made previously to that in the 80s and the 90s that just couldn't catch a theatrical audience in nearly the way the Lord of the Rings would come in and do it. And for my part, I have a very sort of vivid historical memory of going to see Fellowship of the Ring at the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles, and thinking I was the only one in my family who would even consider going to a fantasy movie on its opening weekend, and then walking out and being like, I've just seen something quite special. I'm going to bring back everyone in my family. And it was a paradigm shift, I think, in the genre. But before then, with the likes of movies like Willow, like Neverending Story, like Labyrinth, it just wasn't a genre that meant theatrical success. It was sort of relegated to slightly B status. And then this movie happened, these series of movies, The Lord of the Rings, and it really redefined the genre. And then Game of Thrones came along and redefined the genre on television. So we're living in a sort of I guess I suppose, a sort of golden age of this kind of content being brought to the mainstream. And with Willow, it's a relic of that prehistory. Yet somehow the image of Warwick, and specifically of Warwick and Val, permeates, and it's endured because it's so strong. And I think a lot of it, frankly, has to do with the poster and the VHS release.
Absolutely. Tell me this, I've got like 30 seconds left, but was there a concern that you would have to do too much to introduce a new audience to the franchise?
No, not really, because I always felt like there was a simple setup in the show, in that there was this baby who was sort of at the end of the movie left to a king and queen who did not give birth to her. She had enormous power. She had a history with this sorcerer who, had left her and but was deeply connected to her. And I thought that was sort of all the elements I needed for the start of a classical fantasy story, and one that could be contemporized in a lot of ways.
Absolutely fantastic.
Oh,
John, congratulations on the show. Thank you so much. I'm all out of
thanks
time.
so
I
much.
just have to say this. Peck is the most fantastic fictional slur ever invented.
Ever.
PK,
And
hard consonants. It's
and
great.
nobody says it with more bitterness than Warwick. He's the best.
Willow.
Thank you so much for watching our video. Don't forget to check out our other great interviews right here on YouTube. Sound off in the comments below. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. You know what to do.